Mowing, 352-629-2440, or online at powellgene, Gene, at yahoo.com. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing.
All right, 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Nice looking Wednesday. Hope you're doing well. If you are a teacher, I am not worthy. I am not worthy. We every once in a while, Rob and I will do a show for a classroom, and it's always amazing to me to think that lady, that man at the front of that room does this every single day. How do they keep the attention? How do they motivate? How do they inspire? How do they do what they do, and how do they do it well? Bill Latham is on the phone. He's got some really cool information that might help you as a teacher. You know, I teach. I have my niece. I teach her guitar every Saturday morning.
Yep, you
and,
do.
and I really approach it as a teacher, but I have, a half hour, 40 minutes with her once a week? Mm-hmm. Your brother was a teacher for how many years?
35.
35 years. Wow. Yep. The book that Bill is going to talk about is called Humanizing the Education Machine: How to Create Schools That Turn Disengaged Kids into Inspired Learners. I love this topic, even though I don't know anything about it. Bill Latham, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, it's a pleasure to be with you.
It's important to me. This topic is important to me because obviously when you hear, and there's a political element to this because we do a radio talk show, but the political element is from listeners, from other guests, they will say we are intentionally, the word intentionally I hate, but it's what they say, intentionally dumbing down America. I don't know that that's true. I'm just telling you what we hear. So I think what you're saying in the book makes all the sense in the world, especially, I don't know, the hard to reach kids, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you started with a great point about teachers. If you think about how do you create an inspired learner, you have to kind of go to the source of that which is the person who's spending as much time with the student as anybody, and that's their teacher. One of the things that's really disturbing about the state of teachers today is that 7 out of 10 self-report being either passively disengaged or actively disengaged in their job. And the fallout from that, Gallup estimates about 3.5 million work days a year are lost as a result of the disengagement of teachers. And every one of those days is a day of instruction that's lost, and it's a day of relationship with their students that's lost. And we have to start to ask ourselves questions like, why is that? Because people don't enter the teaching profession ignobly to make their fortunes, or because they grew up wanting to be in a modest pay job with a lot of pressure.
Right.
They grew up loving children. And it is that the book really gets at the heart of the machine that begins to grind that out of not just students, but the teachers and the administrators. And we have a real problem in the United States, not so much with the machine not producing what it was designed to produce.
Is part of
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering if the problem stems from disengaged legislators. We have people in the state capitol who tell our local school boards what to tell our teachers. And there's a couple of levels of disengaged people. Maybe that's part of the problem, or am I wrong about that?
I think you're right, only in the sense that legislators tend to reflect the people that they represent. And so it's the communities that in large measure look at the professionals and say, hey, you do what you do, educate my children, and I'll do what I do. And it tends to be communities that disengage from what's really necessary for transformation in education as the world has been shifting. And so there are a lot of stories in the book of hope where communities actually say, you know what? We understand that the businesses of tomorrow are going to be staffed with the students that are coming out of our school system, and we care about that, and therefore we are going to engage at a different level. And so community engagement and social capital is critical to an education system that thrives in a community.
This past Saturday, Robin and I judged videos. We participate in this every year, and the videos are done by children. And in this case, the meeting place was in an elementary school. So Robin and I were in one of the classrooms. There were no children in there. We were just using the computer to watch the videos. But the way that teacher had the classroom set up looked very comfortable. Like this was more like a lounge than a classroom, and I thought, I bet you this works.
Effective.
It looked like it would. I thought if I was a child in this classroom, I think I would pay attention. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It just looked like someplace I would feel comfortable in, and I don't know if that's speaking to the point you're trying to make. but it's
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about it. Learning is a very human experience. It's a uniquely human experience. And we engage in curiosity, we engage in life application. The seeds of learning require care and hope. And so when a teacher is able to create that type of connection, whether it's through the physical space or whether it's through the trust or whether it's through just touching that kid on the shoulder and saying, I care about you, that is more powerful than every standardized test we can offer. And it's reflected in what parents tell us about how they look at the effectiveness of schools. Gallup did a study, and parents in the 80% of parents say, it's important to me, and what I judge my school as being effective by is if my child is engaged in their classwork and hopeful about their future. And it was actually... Oh, go ahead.
In the beginning of teaching students here in our country after it was founded, you had one-room schoolhouses, and you had one teacher teaching different levels for the students. Well, even though now the schools have one teacher per designated subject, in the elementary schools, you have one teacher for the whole class for the majority of time. And even though all of those children are the same age, they still learn on different levels. And you bring out in your book that the teacher has to recognize that. And it's sort of going back to that one-room schoolhouse.
It is. I think one of the things that we understand, and the reason we call it a machine, is machines are based on efficiency. They're based on consistency of production. If I make certain inputs in the machine on pieces of raw material, I can get certain outcomes. And the fallacy there is that there's nobody that starts the same when they come in, and there's nobody that's the same when they walk away. And so it's fallacious to say, well, gosh, the raw material is the same, so we should be able to make identical inputs and get consistent results. And that's that recognition that the machine mentality in education doesn't work.
I'm wondering if there were any experiments done. One of the things you point out in the book is to reimagine real estate, and you go through the lighting, adding plants to a classroom, and even the outside of the school. Mm-hmm. And so you do that. I'm wondering if you have any examples in the book of, or just in general, of, let's say, an inner city school that has kids who are really hard to teach, and they've changed the whole environment, and somehow that affected the learning experience.
Certainly it's a strategy, and it's talked about in the book, but when you think about the different kinds of schools that are out there, the ones you're describing with the low SES and a lot of the challenges of just safety, a child spends so much of their mind share in that scenario worried about where their next meal is coming from, worried about will they be safe when they get home. And so a strategy for a school like that is going to look a lot like social and emotional literacy with the child, and it's going to look a lot like helping that child to develop a level of resilience that other children may not have to at an early age. And we do cover that in the book in one of the chapters. We talk about social emotional literacy. And that's a really important get for somebody who is coming with their mind share so immersed in the realities of their life. That might be very different from a school in suburbia and what they need to ladder up and transform.
And that community involvement is so important, because coming up in Marion County, Florida on March 18th, there's a literacy event that's going to encompass the whole community. So every student is encouraged to be there with their folks to do literacy-oriented projects, to have fun, and that's another thing that parental involvement, or the caretakers of those children, need to understand. They need to be involved in the students' lives.
And I think that's, to your point, that's absolutely critical in a community where parents can be involved. But when you think about what we were just describing in that single income family where the parent is literally trying to put food on the table, it's a different type of socioeconomic situation. And mama goes to work and she's just hopeful that, Johnny is safe as he walks to school and walks back, and she's not going to be home till late that night. Her level of parental involvement will be different, and that school strategy will have to be very different in how they help that child develop the skills that they need to walk into the next phase of their life.
The book is called Humanizing the Education Machine. It's a guide for administrators, teachers, parents, and community leaders. In other words, all of us. Bill Latham is one of the authors. Rex Miller and Brian Cahill are the other two authors. And I have a copy of the book. Call me if you want it. The rest of us have to go buy it. Bill, we've got like 10 seconds. Can you give us a website?
Website is hope.school. And that'll get you started on the road to helping us humanize the machine.
All right, hope.school. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Thank you all for being here.
We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Karen McHugh. It's not just the Democrats who are unhappy with the Obamacare replacement plan.
Some hardline conservatives are threatening to derail a bill repealing and replacing Obamacare because they say it doesn't go far enough. Republican Senator Rand Paul has his own replacement plan.
We should do repeal and replace at the same time, just not in the same legislative vehicle.
Two House